Empty streets, darkened doorsteps. It seems like a ghost town now. What happened to trick-or-treating? Where did it go? In my neighborhood for the past few years, trick-or-treating seems like a thing of the past. Rather than going from door to door, people flock to parks, malls, and churches to celebrate the holiday by having parties with mock trick-or-treat-like events. But where is the actual trick-or-treating? Is it a tradition that has died? Wait a minute. Let's rewind here. Ever since I was a kid, I lived for Halloween. Dressing up in awesome costumes to go door to door collecting more than my fair share of candy was always the best part of the evening. Sometimes we'd do fun-filled activities in school, such as making shrunken head apples, bobbing for apples, or Halloween-themed crossword puzzles and word searches. Oh, and of course, the parties. When it was time for trick-or-treating, the neighborhood filled with kids and their parents ready to celebrate the evening's festivities. The older kids would often go out later to wreak havoc on the neighborhood by pranking, toilet papering the houses or schools, egging people, things like that. Halloween was always my favorite time of the year, so when Planet Pathlings decided to do this topic, I jumped at the chance to talk about trick-or-treating, then and now. Though it looks as if it is pronounced Samhain, it is actually pronounced Samhain, and the term dates back to the ancient Celts who lived almost 2,000 years ago in what is now Ireland, the United Kingdom, and northern France. The term Samhain is a Celtic word meaning November or end of summer and marked the first day of the Lunar New Year. The Celts followed a lunar calendar, so their celebrations began at sunset the night before. It is due to this fact that many people see Halloween as a pagan holiday, but that's not exactly accurate, as the pagan holiday of Samhain falls on November 1st, and Halloween is on October 31st. Therefore, Halloween is actually Samhain Eve. During the day on October 31st, the fires within the home are extinguished. Often families would engage in a good fall clean-out to clear away the old and make way for the new, starting the winter months with fresh and clean household items. They believed that the dead returned to earth on Samhain. People would gather to light bonfires, offer sacrifices, and pay homage to the deceased. During these celebrations, the Celts wore costumes and danced around the bonfires. Many of these dances told stories or played out the cycles of life, death, or communicated the cycle of the wheel of life. These costumes were adorned and decorated for many reasons, one of which was to honor the dead who were allowed to rise from the other world. The Celts believed that the souls were set free from the land of the dead during the eve of Samhain. Those that had been entrapped in the bodies of animals were released by the Lord of the Dead and sent to their new incarnations. The wearing of the costumes signified the release of these souls into the physical world. In some Celtic celebrations of Samhain, villagers disguised themselves in costumes made of animal skins to drive away phantom spirits. Banquet tables were prepared and edible offerings were left outside the home to placate unwelcome spirits, while beautiful and elaborate feasts were concocted within the home to pay homage to ancestors which had passed on. These elaborate feasts were called dumb suppers and in many cases are still celebrated today. In later centuries, people began dressing in ghosts and demons and other malevolent creatures and performing acts in exchange for food, wine, and money. The custom known as mumming dates back to the Middle Ages and is thought to be an antecedent of trick-or-treating. In medieval Britain, on All Souls' Day, which is November 2nd, the needy would visit upon the homes of the wealthy families and beg for cakes, and in return they would pledge to pray for the souls of the deceased loved ones of the families who would spare such a gift. This was called souling, and the cakes were known as soul cakes. Another tradition around this time was called guising. In this tradition, young people would go door to door wearing masks, and in exchange for food, money, cakes, or wine, they would tell jokes, recite poetry, sing, or do various other acts of entertainment. Still another potential trick-or-treating predecessor was the British custom to wear masks and carry effigies whilst begging for pennies on Guy Fawkes Night, also known as Bonfire Night. This night commemorates the foiling of the so-called Gunpowder Plot in 1605. On November 5th, 1606, Guy Fawkes was executed for his role in the Catholic-led conspiracy to blow up the English Parliament building and remove King James I, a Protestant, from power. On the original Guy Fawkes Day, celebrated immediately after the famous plotter's execution, communal bonfires or bonefires were lit to burn effigies and the symbolic bones of the Catholic Pope. By the early 19th century, children bearing effigies of Fawkes were roaming the streets on the evening of November 5th, asking, quote, a penny for the guy. In the mid-19th century, Irish immigrants fleeing the potato famine of the 1840s, along with Scottish immigrants, helped to popularize Halloween in America. The first American Halloween celebrations included public events created to honor the harvest. Friends would spend the night telling spooky ghost stories, predicting fortunes, and singing and dancing. Autumn festivals became common by the middle of the 19th century, but Halloween had not yet reached the entire country. In the early 20th century, Irish and Scottish communities revived the old world traditions of souling and guising in the United States. By the 1920s, costly pranks became a favorite Halloween activity of rowdy youth in many cities, and in many cases caused upwards of $100,000 in damage. It is said that to prevent the neighborhoods from any future damage, the first community-wide trick-or-treating events were organized. The earliest known mention of the term trick-or-treat was printed in the November 4th, 1927 edition of the Blackie, Alberta, Canada Herald, and it reads, and I quote, Halloween provided an opportunity for real strenuous fun. No real damage was done, except to the tempers of some who had to hunt for wagon wheels, gates, wagons, barrels, etc., much of which decorated the front street. The youthful tormentors were at back doors and front, demanding edible plunder by the word trick or treat, to which the inmates gladly responded and sent the robbers away rejoicing. End quote. Because of the sugar ration caused by World War II, children did not trick-or-treat from 1942 to 1947. Once the ration was over, however, trick-or-treating returned and became more popular than ever. Many candy companies saw this as a perfect time to capitalize on the new American custom of candy begging, turning this celebration into huge profits. The custom of trick-or-treating burst into the mainstream by 1951 when trick-or-treating was depicted in a Peanuts comic strip. In 1952, Disney produced a cartoon called Trick or Treat, which featured Donald Duck and his nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Soon after trick-or-treating appeared in cartoons, it would also make its appearance in movies and other television programs, with horror films or science fiction films soon to follow. Trick-or-treating, the event itself, became a nationwide staple for many years to come, until recently. So it is at this time that I'm going to actually break from the stuff that I've written to actually talk about the decline of trick-or-treating, because this is something that I have witnessed for a while now, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to do this topic. So probably about 10 years ago, I started to notice that there were fewer and fewer kids coming to the house to get candy. And I recently also read an article that says the exact same thing. The person who wrote this article actually said that they left an entire bucket of candy out on their porch and no one picked it up. My experience has been actually going out in my neighborhood in the immediate area looking for people to pass out candy to. Parents who are getting ready to end their night maybe, or teenagers who no one would give them candy, and just unloading all of the candy we had because no one came. And it's just been a shame that this tradition seems to be dying out. So in the article, it lists a few reasons as to why the tradition may be dying out, and one of those things is, as I said in the video, people going to the malls and to carnivals, parties, parks, churches, other places to kind of have a party or a mock trick-or-treat like event versus actually going out and getting sweaty and collecting candy and doing it from dusk until sometime around midnight. Another thing that was mentioned in this article was that some communities were actually banning trick-or-treating in their areas. They were putting a curfew on how late children could be out. They were putting an age cap on how old is too old to trick-or-treat. Some schools put a ban on costumes or different types of costumes. There's just a lot of things that are leading to the decline of trick-or-treating. And I think that it's sad because I thought it was something that brought our neighborhood together. And I'm hoping that it's maybe just in my area that this has taken effect. So I'd really like to hear from everyone out there as to how trick-or-treating and Halloween is being celebrated in your community, and hopefully it is thriving, because I can tell you that in many areas of California it is not. So I didn't mean to end on such a bummer note, but I would really like to hear in the comment section from you guys about how trick-or-treating and Halloween is thriving in your communities, and maybe that can be the positive ending to this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next week. Many blessings. Bye-bye.